So this meeting is being recorded because several have said that they can't attend today. So it'll be useful for us to be able to offer them the recording. We'll be broadcasting it as well, and for the purposes of minute taking as well. So first of all, can I welcome you all here and thank you for attending, and can we thank you for all of the responses you've been sending to us. We really appreciate it. As you know, our resources are pretty scarce, but it's great that we get information from you directly. So we're really thankful and grateful to you, and appreciate the relationship that's developing between us. It's pretty challenging, but we're hoping by working together we will be able to get a solution in the end. And so as far as today's arrangements are concerned, can I just ask you to keep your microphone on mute unless you're talking? We have an hour, so we'll be trying to fit everything in during that time. And if you could raise your hand via reactions if you want to ask a question or contribute, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Angela's going to talk about where we're at the moment with the plan and a bit about the feedback that we've heard. And then Iwan from the council will be giving us some information about the byway. So we have just an hour, so straight to Angela. So thank you all for attending. Short notice. Just like Katrin said, it's great to see and get as much feedback from you on how things are actually working on the ground. And obviously there are varying opinions coming through at the moment regarding how the cones are affecting the area. So on the whole, from what we've understood from you regarding where the cones are, they do work, but they are causing significant displacement issues, especially around the cafe and around people's houses in that vicinity. There are quite a lot of different comments that we've received, so it would be useful for us to understand what your opinion is about what's happening. But Iwan is also here from Gwynedd Council to present us with the idea of having the clearway there. That is a rural clearway that we mentioned to you via email. It's really important that you're here today because Iwan needs your input and your ideas about the consideration that needed to be taken into account if the clearway is going to be established in the area. Like I mentioned, anyone who isn't here, for example, Liam's been in touch to say that he's in Ireland. So the meeting is being recorded so that he can hear everything and give his input, because we need to know consistently what your feelings are about the potential that this may happen. So if we could keep our questions until the end, and then I'll chair a session at the end. But Iwan is here from Highways Gwynedd Council, so I'll transfer straight to him to explain what can actually happen in the area. Hello, everybody. So perhaps I better introduce myself. I'm Iwan Trevor. I'm working on behalf of Gwynedd Council, and in general, I am responsible for highways, any changes to the highways, and that includes implications relating to traffic, or to look for opportunities in order to undertake any projects. We do get we've been having quite a lot of calls during the last year talking about and mentioning the problems that have occurred with parking, with the changes that has happened, and the increase in numbers as a result of the pandemic, and that's to every part of Gwynedd. So what we've been trying to do is to tackle the problems as and when they happen and when they're drawn to our attention. But the major problem that we have is that we are actually operating within strict guidelines regarding what we're able to do and the way in which we are able to introduce things. And often the process can be very frustrating for many. And often we do have to make decisions that are maybe a bit different. In this case, we had asked experts to come up with a plan with regard to solutions. Unfortunately, we didn't get that plan in time, and we didn't get enough detail to progress before the actual the holiday season started. As a result, we decided to put the cones in place in the locations where
there was about 4 or 5 cars parked by the cattle grid at the end of our track, on the actual road though, not on the track for Findy. But it's just that problem that once people spot a couple of people parked, they're like, oh look, that's a bit of a parking spot. So I can see that will quite soon become a bit of a funnel for cars that can't find somewhere to park, which isn't a massive problem for us, but I'm just thinking, you know, if a tractor comes down or if anything big's me, we've had fire engines parked there when there's been fires. So I just think it could cause a bit of a safety issue because, you know, the 10-mile Blind Kevin Road is Blind Namel Road it's very, very narrow, you know, and it is kind of pushing people up there. So it's not a huge problem at the moment, but I can certainly see it becoming a problem relatively soon.
Okay, right. Thank you very much for that. Ira, would you like to come back in?
Yeah, completely agree with Dylan and Becky that coming out onto that main road, the cones have, you know, made a big difference for us. So that is a great one. I think the things that we need to be given are some ideas from highways about how to resolve the issue. I mean, is there a possibility of always having one side of the road available for walking on, so that, as Jude says, not both sides of the road are parked on? And in my case, you know, if there was parking on one side and not the other, it would still give me somewhere to walk. Or would highways be saying, well, actually, verge parking is so dangerous for the people getting out of the cars, because they'll then walk to the other side, that isn't even a possibility. We need to be given really the technical possibilities for the parking. I can see that there's a million technical possibilities for residents parking, because it's kind of done everywhere, or done in lots of places and should be done here. But I think, you know, where there is a place to create parking safely, it should be done.
Okay. Well, luckily we've got you on here to tell us what the possibilities are. Just to check, os na unrhyw un arall should just...
I just wanted to check, does anybody else want to give us any feedback on the cones? Paula?
I just wanted to say that having the cones, I understand it's for safety mainly, but for us, it's just reducing the parking for our potential customers. We no longer rely on hill walkers. We're mainly bookings only inside. So we've got people traveling from Penllyn, Bangor, Anglesey, they book a table beforehand, and then they might come once and find, you know, they might turn up half an hour late for their table because they can't find anywhere to park. And then in the end, it's going to be, oh, there's no point booking for Cafe Gwynant because you can't park. And then having these cones everywhere is just, the hill walkers will, I understand it's a problem everywhere, but the hill walkers will park half a mile away and walk, you know, to the Watkin Park car park or whatever. But our customers won't park half a mile away and then walk to the cafe for their lunch. They'll just, you know, they'll just carry on driving, and it is a problem for us.
Okay, yeah. Okay, diolch Paula. Yeah, really interesting. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Paula.
Ydy hwnna'n ddigon i chdi, sorry?
Is that sufficient information for you, Iwan?
Dwi'n meddwl bod bobl wedi bod yn hyddiod o fuddiol iddyn ni.
And yes, I think its comments have been very beneficial, and the information that's been brought to our attention, our original ideas, and some of the ideas that we introduced, they don't quite work across the whole community. So I think the next step for us is to take a step back, if anything, and take into consideration everything that everybody's been saying in this meeting and come up with some sort of plan, a plan where we would feel would be beneficial for everybody. Obviously, things are not as black and white as we initially thought. So, in that sense, we will have to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and review the situation, not just get rid of the parking. That's not the answer. We need to ensure that parking works for everybody's benefit, everybody who's operational in the area, basically. So you won't be considering the urban clearway at the moment, or rural clearway even. We can't introduce the clearway without it having a negative effect on some people in the community. And so in my opinion, it may well not be the best way forward to introduce that urgently. Just to explain, because it will deal with the whole place in one way. If we put in if you put in a clearway, it wouldn't be possible to respond to the distant situations that we've heard today. So my main concern is the effect that it's going to have on the cafe's business. If we were to introduce it over the summer, it could well be a problem.
Okay, Dan, would you like to come in?
Dan?
How would a clearway work? Sorry, I'm being dim. How would the clearway work then? What's the system work?
Yeah, so we do have a clearway in place at the moment in Pen y Gwryd and Pen y Pas area. At the moment, that clearway is for the carriageway only, so it restricts it prevents vehicle from parking on the carriageway itself. So that in this case, if we introduce it, it wouldn't prevent any parking on the verges, just on the road. However, it is possible to introduce like a secondary measure to coincide with that clearway, which prevents parking on verges or footways. We've done that on Bont Briwat. So if you drive on Bont Briwat, there are signs every now and again stating that you're not allowed to park on the cycleway that we built by the side of the new road there.
So ultimately, it would have an effect across the entire area, so there would be no flexibility ultimately at all.
And the reason behind the no flexibility is because we can't demarcate areas where you can park on the verge or where you can't. We can't make it clear for the consumer. Therefore, it would have to be the whole section.
So including the lay-by, yeah, including the lay-by outside the cafe. That would
No,
be clear away as well, just because it's one section.
Yeah, so there is a road which runs opposite the A road, and it's a separate road, and therefore that is a separate identity. So it's not the same road. So you could define that section separately.
Okay. Jude?
And is the clearway just proposed for where the cones are at the moment? Where is it proposed for, the actual clearway?
We were going to do it all the way from. We were thinking of doing it from the top of the hill, just after the cafe, the Dragon Hostel, all the way to about 100 meters away from the junction, which goes into the car park. So you would have introduced the whole area essentially to prevent parking on the carriageway or on the carriageway and the verges.
Okay, and how would that impact the parking for the Red Dragon? Because they park on the verge already.
Exactly, that would have meant that they would have been affected.
Okay. Thank you. And when you say past the junction, you mean if you came down past Gwynant Drive and turned right as far as where the pavement is that where you would mean?
So yeah, so it'll be quite a significant area essentially, to make sure that the parking problems wouldn't occur within a particular area.
Great, thank you.
Damien, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I mean, if the clearway was put in place, obviously my biggest issue, or one of my biggest issues, is I've nowhere to park. If I leave the house, go out, when I come back, I can't park anywhere. I'm certainly not going to park on the side of the road or the side of the verge because I think it's dangerous. So that'd be hypocritical. But if the clearway was introduced, obviously we couldn't park on the side of the road. Yeah.
No, but obviously within the designated bays on the side road and within the parking in Nant Gwynant, and also on there's a road that runs next to the car park as well. Obviously that their areas will be unaffected.
Would there be any way of giving the cafe some designated space and the residents some designated space? Because I think that would make things move a little bit further forward, and it'd probably please quite a few people. Me, certainly.
Yeah, it's the question. We obviously the highways are the logic behind the highway is that it's owned by everyone and it's for the public.
Yeah,
because the public generally owns the highway, so you can't actually physically any particular person can't own a section of the highway. Yeah. So that's the general idea. So any measures that would need to look at and be introduced would have to be for the benefit of everyone in the community. So in terms of parking, we would have to give consideration that you would have to be consideration of, well, how would we know that particular car is for the customer of that particular cafe and not people parking there all day to go up Snowdon. So it's them kind of regulations that we need to work out.
Yeah, because you could have residence permits and you put the permit on your car.
Yeah, but it's something we can look at, but our policy at the moment for resident parking is that it would have to be an area where there's at least 5 households without any off-street parking provision. So I understand that there's only one property or without any off-street parking position in this area. Therefore, it wouldn't.
I don't know, to be honest.
There are 3 there. There are 3 in your
There's 4.
section 4.
Yeah, with majority of them have on off-street parking provisions. So as a result,
I don't think so.
Yeah. So as a result, it doesn't quite come up to the regular. But if it did, if you had evidence that he met the criteria, it would be definitely something that we could look at.
Drive past, have a look. But I mean, you got the cafe as well. I mean, obviously, would their staff need a provision for parking? Would that come into account?
No, it's only for residents, unfortunately. Businesses don't can form part of a resident parking scheme.
Hey, Paul, I can see your hand up for a while. Would you like to chip in there?
I just wanted to say that when I get into work at 8:30 in the morning, I struggle to park my car. So, you know, for the rest of my staff, obviously most of them are in at 8 o'clock in the morning, but when I come in at 8:30, I can't get a space to park. And I had to park the other day on the other side of the Llyndy junction. So I had to walk, you know, quite far to get to work. And so it hasn't happened before. And I know it's because of the volume of people that are going up Snowdon or whatever, but I just feel like restricting the parking is just not going to have any benefit for the cafe at all.
Okay, thank you, Paula. Okay, so Iwan, I know there's obviously people would be frustrated because these problems have been brought up for a long time now, but could we outline what the next steps are now and how long it might take for everybody to be aware?
Can I make one point before
of course,
before
come on in.
That comes in? Apart from the problem of the safety issue of the parking on the verges, if it was possible in any place to make it safe, I don't know what the criteria are. There is also the problem that the verges are soft. So any section where cars drive off again, maybe twice a day, and unless something is done to consolidate the verges, i.e. have them possible to drive on, we are going to end up with verges that are complete mud from the top of the Brindinat Hill to where Iwan discussed the freeway would be. If there is parking on those this summer, we need to do something so that they don't just end up as mud verges, because then the rest of us can't walk on them for the rest of the year, basically. You know, at Penygyrid, they've put, you know, I don't know what you call it, whether you call it gridding, you know, it looks like grass, but it isn't. So there is a provision and it looks nice all year round. So we do need something like that before all the verges are covered in mud. And then my other points before we, you know, discuss what possibilities there are, I think the problems at Penypass, then Penygyrid, have been looked at without taking the Nant Gwynant area into consideration. And so more cars are coming down here. In fact, on the bank holiday weekend, I watched the people queuing for the bus. I have got a picture I can send you. And of course, people are coming down here to park to get the bus up to Penypass. So there were 12 people in that queue. So that is potentially 6 cars parked in Nant Gwynant, and they take the bus up to where they want to go.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Rather than going
It's
over
free,
to
isn't it?
Paris and then Paris to park
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's free parking. Why are people going to pay for parking when there's a free car park in the village, which is being used as a car park?
Okay, right, that's interesting. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay,
It's surprising because obviously the bus is only every 2 hours. So one of the things we'd really like to encourage people to do is to use that bus more and to park further out somewhere like Portmadog. But the feedback that we're getting is that's not, people won't do that because the bus is only every 2 hours, you know, so, okay.
but they will park in Nant Gwynant because it's only a 5-minute ride up to Penigurid. And when all the verges are parked on, and the free parking in front of Damien's, there's 150 cars, and they can all have free parking up to Penna Pass.
Okay.
187 Ira on Saturday on both sides of the road.
Yeah.
Okay. Judith?
I just had another question about the clearway, really. If that is proposed to go ahead, would it be possible to have an on-the-ground meeting with the residents? Because if it stops at the top of the hill, it would just mean that section from the top of the hill to the lake is the same problem, which is narrow verge, and people will be on the road on a corner because they'll be pushed to there. That was my first thing. So would it be possible to have an on-the-ground meeting? And the other thing is, if the clearway was put in, what management would be put in to do that? Because people will come, they'll come in their car to still want to park, unless there's on the ground management of that. I don't understand what will happen. I think people will just still park on the clear. It still doesn't solve the problem, does it?
Okay, good. I could see, just before Iwan answers that, I could see Dylan's screen there with a hand up. Yeah, would you like to come in as well?
Yeah, I was just going to back up what Jude was saying. It's a big concern to me if it ended by Red Dragon, because actually I tend to, so this is just from my experience, because I don't go up that way towards Llanberis at the weekends. I totally avoid going that way because it's just so busy generally. So usually if we go out the weekend, we go over to like Blaena, or where did we go? Cumberstradlin. We just try and escape the madness here, basically. So I see what's going on down towards Jude's and Red Dragon. And yeah, it's just to reiterate the worry that, you know, all the work that's been done at Penigurid, you know, it is just pushing it all down to Nant Gwynant totally. I mean, this is really what's happened. You know, Nant Gwynant does have a big attraction for people because it is free parking. You have very close access to a footpath. A lot of people that come here, they're not going up Snowdon, they're just going to the waterfalls or into the woods. But I think it is certainly seen, and I see this when I see people on the footpath and chat to people. You know, people come here because it's easy access, it's free parking, and it's just moving people on from where they used to park, basically. And I just think an urban clearway there that ended there, I don't really, I mean, a rural clearway, I mean, I don't really understand how it'd work. I'd need to know more about that. But I just think if you stopped it there, it's going to push it further down towards Glandinas, further down towards the lake, which I've got massive safety concerns about. Like, you know, I'd be really surprised if there isn't a really bad accident this year, especially, you know, quite often people have been stuck behind somebody. So people are quite frustrated. A lot of overtaking goes on there. So it is a bit of a dangerous point. And it would shove people up the 10-mile road as well, you know. And I just feel really sorry for Paula. There's me looking at all these cars like going, and probably one of them was Paula's car. Paula, you should just come and park here next time. It's just rubbish though, isn't it? It's just the situation's just, and it's a really, really complex situation. I just don't know where we're going to go with it, but something, I mean, let's be honest, you know, we don't have a solution, and this year is just going to be hell. And I would really like to keep the cones on the junction for Llyndy if that's possible, because I do think, even though it hasn't worked totally, it has made a massive difference. I can actually get out now, whereas before we couldn't get out onto the main road. So if cones are being taken away, if they could be kept on the junction here, I'd really appreciate that. So yeah, and it'll just get shoved down. Whatever we do, it's just going to get pushed down, further down the valley. We're going to keep pushing these cars further and further away, you know, until the solution's actually found.
Okay, thank you. That's really, really interesting. Okay, Iwan, I'll bring you back in os bosib, just i egluro. From what I've understood, Iwan, we're now not, the rural clearways now not considered appropriate because of what everyone's saying here, yeah? So we need an individual plan, yeah?
Yeah, I think just a blanket rule of clearway, I think, is not going to resolve the issues which has been brought, all the issues that's been brought forward. As a result, we need to reassess our plan. In terms of the extent of the clearway, I think that might be something that we need to look at and review maybe an initial thought on how far the clearway or any restrictions will be extended on that particular section of road. The second question that's been raised was in terms of enforcement. So over the summer in the Pen y Gwynant Pen y Pass area, we introduced a new enforcement system where on clearways there was an option for our traffic wardens to either place a ticket on a vehicle or even arrange for by collaborating with the police, arrange for that car to be towed away. So in terms of enforcement, they are quite strict enforcement measures that we could introduce if the restrictions or if there's a lot of people disrespecting the restrictions that we put in place.
Okay, so I'm sure everyone wants to know what's going to happen next and how long that may take and when may they see some changes happening. Do we have any idea of that?
Okay, so the issue that we have is that obviously we have to give the same attention to all the different communities within Gwynedd. My initial thought with this was to introduce it as what we call an experimental order, which meant we could have got something in before the summer. However, because of the complexities of the design and the amount of consultation that's needed, I don't believe that timescale will be realistic. And an experimental order is the right way to approach it as a result of the complexities of what needs to be done. If it was a simple clearway, stop parking altogether, yes, you would be the experimental order would have been the way forward. As a result, we need to go back to the drawing board. So in terms of our timescales, I think even for this summer, I think it's getting the cones right will be our main priority, and make sure that we are placed to restrict the amount of parking where it's dangerous and it's not needed.
Okay, so just what's the best solution for that, of getting the cones right then?
Yeah, so if there are sections which you believe that requires more cones, please let us know, and then we'll obviously do an assessment of that. So the kind of stuff that you've been telling us is there are certain areas which would benefit from additional cones, so we could move things around or even add additional cones.
Okay, Jude, would you like to come in?
So, just on a sort of positive, I know you try and put out lots of messaging and stuff about parking and park and rides. Is it possible to message that there is limited parking in Nant Gwynant, or an alternative for where you could go? Because as we said before, people are going to turn up and what they've decided they're coming here, they're going to park. So if that could go in their head beforehand, if you want to go up Snowdon, you're better off parking in Llanberis where there is parking than parking is limited. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to suggest the same thing, or ask you if it was possible to maybe get some temporary signage in, if it's going to be cones for this summer, that we have that kind of event signage, encouraging people based on what Ira was saying about all of those people going on the bus, that we actually have signs saying please park at Nant Peris for Yr Wyddfa for Snowdon. Is that something that we could potentially think about, Iwan?
I think the question is, how do we get the message out? We do have signs up in various locations indicating that there is a park and ride provision in Nant Paris. So I'm just questioning whether if additional signs will make a difference, but we can definitely look into it, especially if we've got cones out there. There's no reason why we couldn't put yellow signs with information explaining to people where they could park, I suppose.
Are we talking about signs in Nant Gwynant? Or are we talking about signs at Penigurid where people are coming through, or somewhere else? Are we talking about preempting the problem, or are we talking about putting a sign where people have driven to expect to park and then think, oh God, I've got to go back up the pass now?
Yeah.
Or what, you know?
That was my thought more, that like, I don't know where the parking information is on the National Park website or something. Could it say that parking is limited? I don't really know. It's sort of off the top of my head, that sort of idea, really.
Yeah, it does already say that, and we've got a messaging system. Our comm system at the moment is about how to park. If you're going to the walking path, we've got, you know, a sustainable way to do that, and we're encouraging people to use the bus, park and port, or to use different car parks from Nant Gwynant.
Okay.
But we've also got the trunk roads are looking at putting in signage from the kind of Conway side, from Betws-y-Coed, Capel Curig side, to explain more about where to turn and the fact that there's pre-booking in Pen-y-Pass and you need to go to Nant Peris. And Gwynedd Council have already arranged signs in Llanberis and Nant Peris, which obviously explains about the pre-booking and where to park for Rwyfa there. So my suggestion would be that that's reinforced by signage in Nant Gwynant if there's cones there, because people turn up, see there's cones, they can't park, but then they need to know where they can go. That would be my thinking, but I'd bow to Iwan's knowledge there of, you know, how people behave in that situation.
Can I make a point before we go over to Iwan? Whilst a certain amount of signage is good, of course, once people have got here, that's where they want to be. They've often driven from Manchester, they've got kids in the car, they've got, you know, a day to run. I think given the amount, you know, we've got a delay now in resolving some of these problems. Even though with all the will in the world, we have to, it's a very complex situation. And I think I've discussed with Jude how many people there are at Pen-y-Pass giving out information, steering people towards alternative parking. When I go down here on a busy bank holiday day, people are just lost, not knowing what to do or where to go. They don't know where Snowdon is. Is it that way? Is it that way? Is it that way? And there is no presence here whatsoever. And we have actually just, you know, managed to be slotted into the sort of area where, okay, I take it there are signs on the website and information there, but on a busy bank holiday, I haven't seen anybody here.
Yeah, I mean, just to answer to that very quickly, we have recruited more seasonal staff, and we have prioritised that the information van will be based down in Nant Gwynant on at least one day of the weekend. And obviously our volunteer programme in partnership with others here has started up again now, so there will be much more presence from now on. So yeah, we've put that as a priority based on obviously last year as well. But yeah, you know, we're very thin on the ground and we need more people on the ground. We're very aware of that.
And from the highways point of view, once those verges have been
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ira. Okay, really important points. So I can see 3 hands up and we've only got 5 minutes, so just like to hear as much as possible. So Damien, your hand was up first.
Yeah, sorry. My point was kind of already covered there, but I just wanted to say there's a 500-foot lay-by in Nant Gwynant. It'll accommodate around about 80 cars. There's the car park there. I don't know off the top of my head how many spaces are in it. There's about 50. I think on top of that, there just isn't the infrastructure within Nant Gwynant to support anymore. And that's about all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Dan?
What's the deal if somebody moves to cones and parks the van? So there's somebody that done that very thing this weekend, and somebody moved cones around and then parked the van inside the cones. So what happens then? Obviously, we'll take pictures and send them to you, but is that a tow weighing offence?
Yeah, I'll leave you one to answer that one.
It could be if the police believes it now causes an obstruction, but it will be difficult for us as a local authority to tow away the vehicle, so or act as a result. The cones are just visual at the moment. They're not enforceable.
They're a deterrent. They're a deterrent. I asked the police and they said, actually, they're just a deterrent. There's nothing we can do.
Elgar?
So yeah, ynglyn â'r pwynt efo'r cones.
Yes, regarding the point about the cones, more than anything, really, there are other places, surely, if we were to go back to basics and look for somewhere to establish a car park, as things work at the moment, nothing at all is going to progress. There are a few sites that have been looked at. Those 2 sites that I know of, they're the worst sites possible, really, in Nant Gwynant. There are maybe another couple of places, not everybody would agree maybe, but one site might be in Llyndy, and I thought that somebody from the National Trust would be here tonight, either Tristan or Simon, but never mind, in order to discuss that issue. But would it be an idea to go back to have a look at that? Because everybody wants to see people coming to Nant Gwynant. So we shouldn't criticize them all that much. In one way or another, we depend on them. So we might as well try and cooperate and live with them rather than making things difficult. So yes, those are my thoughts. And then we undertook the scoping plan on Llyndy, and it was assessed as not suitable as a car park. That was the one closest to the road, but if you were to go further along, both were looked at because there's a road approaching the other one, and you could use the road that's further away from the road. Yes, both were looked at. If there's anywhere that anybody else could put forward, please, you know, put forward your proposals. And that was just temporary as well. If we were going to try create something like that as a pilot, But from what we've heard from other experts is if you create capacity, you're also attracting even more capacity. So more people are going to come. So it's really difficult and rather tiring. But if you do have any ideas, please come back to us, because we feel if there was a solution, I'm pretty sure it would have been implemented by now. But that's what we want to see happening, and we're working in partnership with everybody in the area to try and achieve that. Katrin, did you want to come in? I was just going to say exactly what you've said with that study that was undertaken in Llyndy. Eira, what were the reasons that it wouldn't be possible to establish parking in Llyndy? It's not safe enough. The turning in there isn't safe enough. And the main issue was flooding in the area. The land isn't suitable to have cars on it. And there were several other elements as well, but those were the main reasons. But we're kicking a ball around, like Elgan said. We are dependent upon, and we are looking forward to seeing the people who are able to park here. But if we can't establish parking temporarily, then we can't bring people into the area safely. And say if work was undertaken on the corner into that field that's right next to the road, people are undertaking work on gateways and accesses. Couldn't we revisit that, like Elgan said? People are putting Bailey bridges in, establishing big turnings, because we're in a catch-22 situation here in Nant Gwynant now, trying to get to grips with this, and something somewhere has to give. As a community, we need people to come here. Wouldn't it be possible for us to look at that? I'll raise that matter again, but it will only be temporarily. The 28-day rule would come in. It wouldn't be operational throughout the year because it's a triple SI and it's a floodplain. It won't get planning permission to have a permanent parking there. What about something that's happened elsewhere? Is there parking in Nant Peris? You know, the farmer that's temporary. That started as a temporary parking. Yes, exactly. And any farmer has the right to open their fields up to 28 days. Yes, as long as the access in and out is safe. Yes. And it's then their responsibility to run it as well. So if anything goes wrong, obviously the responsibility lies with the landowner and it's their choice. And it would be up for just 20, relevant for 28 days only. Elgan, your hand is still up. Did you want to come in again? No, thanks. But well, I'm thinking of another 2 fields in Llyndy, which are different to the ones that were put forward. And when the review was undertaken, they're closer to the buildings. They're definitely not on a floodplain. And is it trust land? Yes. I'll pass that on to Simon and Tristan then and ask them again. Like I said, something has to be done. Accidents are going to happen. And unfortunately for us, It's going to be a local person who will suffer probably. It will probably be local, somebody local in the wrong place at the wrong time rather than a visitor. As a community, we are concerned. We're not complaining for the sake of complaining. We're willing to look at different options, but because the options are so limited, I think we need to take a step back and look at an easy solution first of all, without going to too much hassle really. That's it basically. Can you send me details about the locations you've mentioned, please? Thank you. Catherine? With those locations, perhaps the National Trust have considered them in the past, but I think they came to the conclusion that it wouldn't be possible to extend the road in order to get a car coming both ways, that it wouldn't, the road wouldn't be wide enough to accommodate cars forwards and backwards. With that many cars, 2 cars would have to pass each other and it wouldn't be possible to do that in there. But we can ask again, certainly, can't we, Angela? But there's a car park in Gelliago above Castell here. And there's certainly no room for 2 cars to pass each other at Castell. So I'm not sure how that comes into the equation, to be honest.
Yeah, great. Diolch Elgan, diolch Catrin.
Okay, thanks Elgan and Catrin. Damien?
I just wanted to say, you know, is there anything going to be done? Because the impression I'm getting is we're at the same place we were at the last meeting, where nothing's going to be done until several meetings and plans and ideas. But what I'm taking away is nothing's going to be done before summer, or certainly after. Nothing's going to be done this year, but before trying to accommodate tourists and parking every man and his dog, shouldn't we be looking at the residents first? I appreciate there's a cafe in Nant Gwynant, but they've done all right so far. You know, the previous 4 years or whatever been fine with just the parking and the lay-by. But something has to be done because people are moving away.
Yeah.
And I know Paul and Ali moved away for the exact same reason, because of the parking and stuff.
Okay, yeah, agreed. I think I'll let you and just conclude, but I think what we've agreed now is that there's going to be definitely reconsideration of the cones, Ioania, and we're certainly going to look at potentially signage to back that up then in the area. And then anything else that you want to just finish off with?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're going to obviously relook at the cones and the signage, and the temporary signage as a short-term measure. Now the long-term measure, and I'm saying long-term, but I am hopeful that there will be some impetus on trying to move this forward as soon as possible. Is to get a parking design or parking restriction design, especially for the area, and try to get that agreed with all parties, really.
Okay, diolch. Elgan, hen llaw wedi hwnna, ia? Okay, Ira, yn gyflym iawn os gwelwch dda?
Fysa posib cael cyfarfod.
Would it be possible to have a meeting? Although there is obviously room for Zoom meetings because we all would have to drive and park. Everybody in Nant Gwynant wants, we all want to take into consideration what everybody needs. And do you find really that meeting on the ground are not work, or do you think in this instance, rather than doing what we've been doing already, saying we want cones here, there and everywhere, we want parking here, this is required, we're not getting, it's not all collated. And what happens at the end of a Zoom meeting is we all turn our PCs off, our laptops off, and nobody knows what's going to happen next. Fair enough. The only reason for us to hold it like this is easier for everybody to attend, as well as the partners. When we're talking about the next 2 weeks to look at the cones and consider a signage plan, because we're aware that this needs to happen now. We'll be looking at it before the next bank holiday, the Jubilee that is, to make sure that there's something in place by then. Regarding the longer term plan, it'll take longer. So can we arrange a meeting on the ground in 3 to 4 weeks and for feedback to you and hear from everybody and what Eira's mentioned? It's just a matter of seeing what sort of effect it'll have, and then you as residents will feed into an feedback for us to tell us what if things have improved, worsened, or whatever. Can we take into consideration what Damien has said about parking for residents? Or are you saying that nothing can be done about that?
So, mae dibynnu os ydy'r lleoliadau yn dod I fyny.
It depends if those locations can meet the guidelines regarding the residents of Gwynedd Council. We do have other ways of doing it, and perhaps we'll look into the guidelines on that, but I'll have to come back to you. Either myself or Ian will have a better understanding of our policies and also the legal guidelines regarding bringing these things together. What tends to happen is we have to coincide with the regulations, and you can introduce something and you're caught out because it doesn't quite meet the regulations, and the whole thing falls to bits with regard to enforcement rights. There are lots of solicitors are out there looking at what councils are doing to make sure that they're following the rules. Like Damien said, I think people are moving away, and without people living in the houses on the highway, it's a major part of the community.
It is, and to be honest with you, I know you say there's legal aspects and you got the eyes of lawyers and solicitors on you, but what you got to be thinking is outside my house, a triple parked. If one of my family gets hit by a car, that's when the solicitor's eyes are going to be poking around all over the place. It's not acceptable. It's not safe. I don't see how anyone can see that it's safe. It's ridiculous. It's like this weekend. I've sent some pictures. And I know how you feel like trying to pull out of the junction in Lindy, trying to get out of that lay-by where there's a car, they're parked outside the embarkation. I mean, it doesn't matter to me because I can't park there anyway. So it's just dangerous. Someone's going to get hurt.
Okay, thank you, Damien. Yeah, some really important points. Okay. So I'm just very aware of the time, fyddwn ni'n, colli gyfieithu hefyd, wan. Felly, diolch yn fawr fel arfer I chi gyd yn troi allan.
Thank you all very much for attending, and we'll send this to whoever's able to attend tonight. And I'm sure Catch and Glenn will keep in touch with you, and we'll do our very best to get the cones and signage in place as soon as possible. And if you can send us those locations, please, if you would, so that we can get in touch with the National Trust.
Yeah, I can see you. I'm not sure who that is, but sorry, it says come on. Can you unmute or?
Sorry, you just asked about as giving feedback. Do you want us to carry on giving that to Catherine, or
Yeah.
Johan asked about feedback? So do we contact you directly, and how? Where do you want that feedback?
What's
or the
best, yeah.
continuing conversation?
Yeah. What would you prefer, Johan? Catherine to send it on to you, or us to send it on to you? That's what's been happening at the moment, yeah?
I think it seems to be working because it allows all authorities then to be aware of what's going on. The issue is if you just give it to me, then obviously other officers are not fully aware of what's happening.
Yeah. So Jude, if you just carry on with how you're doing it now, that's what we send everything on, obviously, to you, and that you send to us. Sorry, I'm not sure. Is it?
Sorry, Jones yma. The iPad fi ddim yn gweithio.
My iPad isn't working, so I've borrowed Kennan's PC. I'm just asking, I represent the Community Council in Bethgelert. Please, can you send information to the Community Council as well? Elgan's here as well, but other members of the council may also have some ideas.
Okay, thank you everyone. Diolch yn fawr iawn pawb, and we will follow up as soon as possible. So, and keep in touch, please. Yeah. Okay, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch pawb.